Do you see the recording on your end?
I can see the
Awesome.
recording.
Great.
Mhm.
Welcome, Dr. Julie Githiri Goko. Did I say that right?
You always call me doctor. I'm curious where that doctor has come from.
I guess it's just from
I can
deep
ask you.
respect and love for you. Where else would it come from, I guess? You're not. You're just Julie.
I'm just Julie.
Okay.
And it's interesting how people put doctor. Somebody told me, oh, doctors make us feel good. So we just, you make us feel good. So we're going to call you doctor. I'm like, oh.
It's the gravitas with which you walk through life, Julie. It is this immediate respect that you have earned. I think that's what it is. But thank you for being on Uproot today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, you know, you and I are friends, but you also have been my therapist. And so I am eager for this conversation because I've learned so much from our time together. And I think in the middle of this ongoing pandemic and at the end of this calendar year, I think a lot of us are feeling the heaviness of what the last few months have brought to our lives. And actually, before we go into the nitty-gritty of your advice, tell us a little bit about your work and who you are.
Okay, so I'm Julie Githiri Goko, and I'm a psychotherapist. I'm a psychodynamic psychotherapist. So I work with couples or individuals and sort of take into account their attachment styles and their earlier relationships, formative relationships, and how that may have impacted them then and how it imprints on them as adults now.
Okay,
that's
so
essentially it in a nutshell. Yeah,
that's a psychodynamic psychotherapist.
Yeah, and I work it's there, it's out there. There are quite a lot of psychotherapists that work psychodynamically, either with adults or even with children.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So tell me, just on a personal note and a professional note, how have you fared this year? How have the last 8 months or so been for you and your family?
It's been a mix. I think it's been a mixed bag of emotions. It's been at times really difficult, sort of dealing with the online schooling and having to all be at home all the time. We're so used to being busy. I've got teenage boys at home, so everybody's sort of having their own routine, and now it's sort of we're home. Yeah. So sort of just trying to adjust to that and sort of limiting them going out because of my own fears. So sort of dealing with what the pandemic means to their health and sort of how that means even for us as parents and me and my husband and what it means for us. And it's been a mixed bag, and having my mum in the UK and having my daughter still in Canada. So that's been really scary at times, but, just be hopeful and sort of keep communication going with lots of video calls, lots of communications, and just hopefully we've done 10 months now. It feels like we've been here for years, but we're hopeful that it will end at some point. Still trying to remain optimistic.
Yeah, you have your heart in many different places. I can't imagine that that's easy.
So many. Many.
You must be tracking Ministry of Health like in each of these countries and trying to keep up.
3 locations.
Oh my gosh.
In 3 separate locations. It's crazy.
Somebody out there needs to develop an app where you can like put a GPS on your loved ones and track their movement and also COVID, in those areas.
Yes.
Well, it makes me even more grateful that you've made time for us today, because I'm sure, and I know just from, our personal talks that, your work as a psychotherapist has also been quite demanding this year as you've tried to guide patients through, what started off as a normal year through really an extraordinary one. So for me, I've found myself categorizing kinds of stress this year. I've had those days where I'm like, I'm okay, my family is healthy, so I'm just managing kind of the stress of cancellations and postponements in life, And then probably around June or July, it became a little bit more stress. I was taking my daughter to college, so it became now the stress of the unknown, how long is this going to last? Is she going to be okay? Like you were saying about your daughter being far, is she going to manage alone? And then it gets close to home, and I remember it was probably September. So I had my first kind of COVID positive in my close circle where, there was potential exposure. And then of course it becomes very much different kind of stress. I used to laugh with one of my girlfriends that like around 3 p.m. when your throat gets dry from all the Zoom calls, you start to think you have COVID because, you're getting a scratchy throat. And then, you have these exposures. So I don't know, Julie, those of us who are fortunate to still have our health and jobs, we are still dealing with stress. And then there are those who have lost loved ones and have lost jobs, and the stress they're dealing with is extraordinary. So maybe you can just help us understand a little bit what is our body doing when we start to have, you know, these 3 p.m. psychosomatic symptoms of COVID, or we have these other moments where we can't sleep. You know, what is our body telling us about how stress is affecting us?
Well, we tend to hold stress in our bodies anyway. You know, we may have eczema, people break out with rashes, they feel aches and pains all over the place. Our body's just, we've been holding on to a lot of fear and being in adrenaline mode for the last 10 months.
Yeah. Yeah. What
We've
does
had to.
adrenaline do? Because it can be good, right? It's obviously something
It can
that
be.
athletes depend on, or, you know, but tell us what adrenaline does over time in a situation like we're in now.
Yeah, we require it in our day to day, and you're right, an athlete will need it, but they need it for such a short period of time. But if we're in a constant fight or flight mode, we get exhausted, so we get fatigue, and we may even be struggling from burnout. And you think, but I'm not doing any,
Yeah.
and I'm constantly tired. I wake up tired. I've got a restless night because our body is just constantly switched on. It doesn't know what we need to do. We're waiting on information that doesn't always come. There's no rhyme or reason with this COVID. People get it and they recover. They're asymptomatic. Others don't. And something fatal happens. Then we're losing family members. So we're constantly vigilant. We're hyper vigilant, looking at our loved ones, looking at our friends. Do I take the risk and go out because I'm fatigued in the house all the time? So we're dealing with constantly having to be switched on, and there's no downtime. Even when we're asleep, we're anxious.
Yeah.
We're dealing in a state of anxiety.
You know, when you say that, it reminds me of, you know, times where I've done public speaking or I've had a big event, and then after it's over, you have this huge rush of relief, you know, where you just feel like, oh, it's like taking a bath. But in this year, we haven't had that moment. We
haven't had that moment
at that high point and never had that moment of relief, really, you know? Yeah. And so I sent this question to you about my own struggles being a lot about, you know, stress eating and stress drinking. And, you know, we kind of joke about that, but I have put on, you know, 15 kgs this pandemic. It has been from a joke to now like created another health problem for me. So is that stress eating or stress drinking, is that my way of trying to get my body to come down from that adrenaline and trying to say to it, okay, do something that you find comforting or do something that you find, I don't know. Well, I don't know. What is that about?
It's a negative way of coping, Lily. You know, that your body needs, it's finding a way to cope. It needs some good hormones, something to make us feel joy and pleasure, and food or binging on Netflix or just something which we can do, which keeps us safe. We're sort of able to still manage all those protocols which we've been told to do. But food and drink, it's an easy way to feel pleasure.
Now, this is my theory, but I might be very, very wrong because I have zero medical or psychological training. But my theory is it's not just that I might be eating more, but is my body potentially also storing this food and drink differently because I'm stressed? Maybe like because it's preparing for, I don't know,
absolutely.
War? Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
Your body holds onto food. It stores in times of stress because it has to prepare for something's going on that we don't know can happen at any time because we're on adrenaline mode. We may need it. So let's just store in case we're sent into fight or flight and we have to run. You know, we're just preparing for crisis. So our body is storing. So the more we're eating and drinking, we're building the pounds, we're laying down the fat, which then is going to have a knock-on effect on self-esteem because nothing fits anymore.
Exactly.
And, you know, the days when Zoom is out and we have to sort of be seen from the waist up, we'll all be in serious crisis.
I don't know. I might have to have a whole Zoom recovery season where I just Zoom until I am back to where I was.
About the elastic pants.
Exactly. I just bought some more, sadly. This is my Christmas gift to myself is more elastic pants. But so we're you know, this stress, like you said, it's interesting to think about it as in fight and flight all day because, you know, we're fighting also against something that we can't see, you know, something so benign like going to the grocery store now feels very stressful, you know, or having a friend for coffee, you know, just feels like, you know, I know with you, I've canceled plans because I just had weeks where I just felt like I cannot leave my house. So what are there some things that we can tell ourselves to just help us navigate and function better. You know, there are some caution. We do have to be safer. We do have to
We
take
do.
extraordinary measures, but that
Hmm.
mental kind of, you know, it's like a tape that's just playing in our minds. What are some messages that we can tell ourselves to help us kind of come off the ledge when we may have, you know, letting stress drive us to the point where we really are having a hard time functioning very well?
I suppose it's challenging our fear. I mean, the fear is real. We're looking at the numbers are going up and people are dying. But we have to think, what can I do to keep myself safe?
Yeah,
Yes, I could limit the time that I spend out. If I'm going to go out, I go to an open air place. I'd be a bit more inquisitive about the person I'm going to meet and what's their bubble and their movement and their circle like. Ask the question. And even if you do meet and you feel uncomfortable, then you're still wearing a mask. You know, I'm doing sessions face to face. And I say, actually, I will sit with the mask on. Feel free to take yours off. So
really.
I'm doing I'm
Yeah,
doing my bit to keep myself safe. And
yeah,
if it's a couple, they live together, so their risk is lower. But
right.
you know, I need to keep myself safe, and I have ventilated room. But you're sort of managing the risk. You're not going to sort of keep yourself a hermit in your house and not go anywhere and become a recluse, because that's not healthy for your mental health anyway. We still need
Right.
to interact with people. Like we're social beings. We crave and we need to be in each other's company. But it's how can we do that safely so we're not going to put ourselves at risk.
So let's talk about that for one more minute because you said
Mm,
earlier, and I think it's so true. We all do feel also a real fatigue at the end of the day. If you're on school, if you're in school, or if you're working, and you're zooming all
yes.
day, it's exhausting. And then at the same time, you need human connection. So
Mhm.
help us understand kind of what does human connection give us, Julie? Why is that still important, even in this kind of context where we do have to stay apart?
If you think we've spent most of our lives, if not all of our lives, in the company, in the connection and in the space with other people. So now we're having to do something completely abnormal,
Yeah,
whether it's around touch, whether it's around just friendship, being able to connect with family. We crave that. We need that just for that validation and for the sense of purpose and for us to feel whole.
yeah,
And if that's lacking, then we've got no one to bounce off ideas, with no one to hear us, no one to make us feel secure and to be safe. Ironically, being with people can make you be unsafe because they could give you this virus. But we also crave it as well. We
yeah.
need it. So it's trying to find the balance that I can be in somebody's company and get my needs met, which is that social connection and interaction, but then still managing this virus. Because even thinking of my teenage boys, you know, they crave going out. I mean, they're at that age where teenagers are really struggling. You're keeping them indoors and having to do something so abnormal to their
Yeah.
way of
So
being.
contradictory of
So
everything they should
contradictory.
be doing
Yeah,
right now. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. But they
So
need it. They need that because it helps with self-esteem, being able to build social skills. And now that they're losing those skills, which they've spent years trying to really develop and grow.
I think that's such a keen observation to understand our
Mm,
kids have been on a developmental plan, both intentionally through school and parenting, but also
yes,
unintentionally, like the brain is developing, the brain is growing.
yes,
And then to have that arrested at this moment and so severely put on pause, I don't think we maybe
yes.
appreciate that enough as parents at what that maybe does to them. So let's talk about kids for a minute, because I think as a parent as well with 4 kids, I am I've had moments where I feel like I'm hyper attuned to them. Like, you know, what do you need? Are you
Mm-hmm.
okay? Should we play a game? Should we? And the other moments where I'm so overwhelmed myself that I don't have much to offer,
Yes.
you know? But tell us what you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing and what we should know as parents of kids. And maybe I can break this down into 2 groups because I think there are definitely different camps right now.
Okay.
There are parents of younger kids who
Mm-hmm.
may be happy to be at home because they're younger and home is still their favorite place and mom and dad are still their favorite people. But they are disconnected from
Yes.
other kids their age, and it's hard on parents. They're having to deal and teach their
Mm-hmm.
kids in a way they didn't. And then there's this older group of kids who need the
Mm-hmm.
independence, and we're having to say not right now. So maybe we can talk about
Yes.
families with younger kids. What are some things maybe they should be looking for or paying attention to in their kids' behaviors or in their even family routines that might mean something more is going on with their kids or that their kids are handling stress, you know, or having a tough time with it?
Younger children may regress. They may go
Mm.
back to bedwetting. They may become very babyish and be very clingy because they can sense that there's this anxiety and something new in the way that you're interacting with them. So we have to be observant of that.
Yeah.
They might start talking very babyish again, that sort of tone. You work so hard to get them out of it, to have whole conversations, and they regress back to sort of really baby talk. Bedwetting, maybe not eating their food, sort of being tantrumy, just sort of really not listening anymore. So behavior really is the first place that you would notice major changes in your interaction with them. But it's how do you manage that in a way that you're not reprimanding them all the time? Because it's about the connection that's important at this time. We want to sort of create boundaries and let them know that they can't sort of misbehave. But actually, what they crave is just reassurance.
So what would that sound like to, like, 6, 7, 8-year-old? What is reassurance? Maybe what are some, I don't know if it's specific phrases, or just what would that look like for them?
Just being able to sit with them, sort of have really quiet time, maybe just hugging them, maybe watching a program together, reading a book together, really sort of winding down, maybe bath time, bedtime. So you're bringing them back to a place where they feel safe and secure again. So it's not always having them on adrenaline mode and always switched on. I spoke to a parent recently who nearly got home just at the brink of curfew, and the child in the car was so anxious because they knew that what they were doing, something was wrong. Their parents were just anxious. So they're picking up on us. They've been watching us since the day they were born. So they know our nonverbals.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You have to sort of try and really de-escalate the situation at home. So you're trying to be as calm with them as possible, and having real sort of pockets of time in the day where you're quiet, you're calm, you're connected with them. Not all the time, because obviously you've got things that you need to do, and they need to maybe do online school as well, or whatever it is. But they're just trying to create those opportunities.
Yeah, and I this series is coming at the time of the year where the holidays are coming up, and it was intentional. I think mental health has been talked about throughout this pandemic. At least I hope.
Yes,
people have been talking about that's actually now our second pandemic in a way, is people's wellness and wholeness, as you said earlier. And yet the holidays hopefully present us, those of us who are fortunate to have jobs that will give us time off, or not essential workers will give us a bit more time where we can do some of the things that you mentioned, which is, spending that intentional time and maybe building some new traditions. This will be maybe a quieter and smaller holiday for many people. So our older kids, our teenagers and young adults who are on the brink of, adulthood, what are the signs that maybe that this stress is really starting to, weigh heavy on them? What are the kind of those mental health signs that we need to be paying attention to?
And this is an interesting group because they're not dependent on us so much. And maybe before this pandemic, they were going out, they were socializing, they were doing their own thing, and now we're sort of saying, no, you can't go out and you can't have people around. So we're limiting their freedoms. And for this age group, freedom is so important. But if you find that they're becoming so insular, they're in their bedrooms, they're isolating, they're constantly on social media, and yes, they will be on social media for a large period of the time, but you're able to connect with them as often as is possible for that age group. I mean, what I tend to do is we tend to go out for lunches and dinners. So I'll be really deliberate in saying, okay, we're coming out of the house and we're going to go to this place, and we're not going to use phones. We're just going to just talk to each other. Yeah. And in fact, we did that yesterday. We were somewhere in Westgate, and we just went and we had lunch and we just talked without having devices, and not talking about COVID. If it comes up, well and good, but there's more to their life than this situation. Yeah, they play sports, they've got friends, they've got dreams, they've got hopes for the future. How can that still be kept alive in our conversations and discussions?
And this has been a hard one for them in particular, because they're also old enough to appreciate, the Black Lives Matter movement that happened this summer all around the world. Yes. They were active in that or paying attention to that, for those people who are like me, who have a foot in an election country, there's election stress. I mean, they are hit by all kinds of stress. I like what you said about, taking that intentional time. We try to order in food every now and then and just like at least sit outside, just change up the routine a little bit. So we're forced to make those connections and have time with them. Is there a key way that you have found to communicate to those young adults that balance of independence, but also you have to stay home and listen to me? Like, you're still in my house, you're still my kid. That is there. Are there phrases that can help us maybe as parents communicate that? Because we all thought this would end, in June or so. We thought they would have a normal second term or third term of school, and here we are, and we don't really know what it will look like even in January, February. I don't know.
Yes.
Help us with that.
I've been very relaxed with boundaries with them, which I think has helped,
What do you
because I'm
mean?
not
What
going
do you
to,
mean?
as in, I'm not going to be, if they're late for class, if they're late online, if I
Okay.
get an email every once in a while that they've missed the subject, I'm not going to sort of be reprimanding, oh, what's this? You've got the importance of education. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you had if they're up late watching the football now that the Premier League is back, it's
Right.
okay. They
Yeah.
can do that. If they're playing music really loud, it's okay. Because maybe that's the way that they need to express their stress at this moment.
That's so wise.
If they're
That's
going
so
to go
wise.
out
Yeah.
and go for a run, if they need to go out running or need to do something, okay, be safe, wear a mask, sanitize, don't take too long, come back
Yeah.
before it gets dark,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
being able to give them some freedom, but still let them know that there's an expectation of them to
I
keep
like that.
safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where you can loosen up things, loosen them up. This is not the time to try and, for all of us African parents, to get all upset about the lateness or the tardies. It's just not the time. This is not the season. And I appreciate
you choose
that.
your battles.
Yeah,
you choose your battles at this time. Obviously you want things like their room to be at least tidy, but if it's messy and things are all over the place every once in a while, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are bigger battles.
Absolutely. And I think choosing those battles wisely then makes them maybe more receptive to when you have to say, no, you can't go to that 30-person gathering, or when you do have to kind of hold the line and refuse some requests. Hopefully, if you've let go somewhere else, then your message of no will land better with them. So, Julie, there are many of us, loved ones, friends. I know many who have lost a loved one, who have, this year has been the worst of their lives. They've lost a loved one, they've lost income, their lives have dramatically changed. And people like you and I who have family in different places, that maybe they've been separated. I know one family who's been separated now from their loved ones due to borders closing and visa issues for months, and don't know when they might even see each other again. If we're supporting a friend like that, what are some things that we can do for people who are facing the holidays and they are not looking forward to, the first Christmas without a loved one, or missing traditions because they're not together, or they don't have the income to do the things that they may have done? What are some ways that we can be supportive of those friends?
To talk about it. I think one of the most important things is to not sort of brush over it and think, okay, no, things will all be ever optimist, things will get better. We don't know that. We don't know when, but we can sort of talk about how difficult it is, talk about their loss, talk about the grief that they're feeling, talk about lost memories, but also within that, talk about memories which are real, things that they can hold on to, so that they can sort of plan a little bit for the future, but not letting go necessarily of where they are now. Be led and guided by what it is that they need. Maybe not going with our own agenda. Be there if they need us. Within limitations, we have our own families as well. So we have to be mindful of how much we're willing to give. So we're not overstretching ourselves. In this time, we could do that. We could sort of think, I could do that. I could be there. I could be there for this person. No, we have to sort of say no and say, I can't, but I can offer this time for you. Because I know things are difficult, and I know you've struggled with this, and you've lost this person, and this person meant a lot to you. I understand that. Tell me how you're feeling. So you're curious about where they are in their grieving, or in their journey, or maybe dealing with financial crisis. Try and think with them how they're going to manage. You're not going to come with the answers for them. You're not going to tell them, okay, I found this person in this charity. No, what are they doing also to empower them in their journey of sort of well-being, and getting back to being on their feet again and feeling more independent?
Yeah, I appreciate what you said about trying to resist that saving our friends, because it's so hard to see them grieving, but just grief is grief, and to talk about it.
It's a process, and it can take years. We need to be able to meet them where they are in their journey of grief. And grief could be whether it's losing a job, losing a loved one, losing it's dealing with all types of grief at this time.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's what I've read so much, that there's this collective grief this year, that there's degrees of certainly of losing a loved one is not the same as losing a graduation or something like that, but there is a profound sense of loss for everyone. Julie, when we're talking with friends, particularly who have lost loved ones, it is one of those things where I think everybody, did I lose you?
You froze there for a second, just in that question, and then you
I'm
come back.
All right.
Yes, a while back.
Maybe God just knew I needed I need to retry that question. I need to redo it.
You have a cup of tea.
Exactly. Time for a sip of water. For those of us who have loved ones who or friends who have lost a loved one, and that grief is so acute. I have one thing I struggle with is, when do I say, I think you need help? There's so much I can do for you as a friend in terms of listening and supporting, but is it ever okay to say to somebody, I think you need a professional help, or have you thought about seeing a therapist? Like, is that okay to do, and should we do it? And how do we know when it's the right time to do it?
Especially if you've built a relationship with them, you know them. So you've got that history when things have been good and your relationship with them is going okay, and you've seen them at their best. Yeah. And now you're seeing them at a time that's different. So you've got something to compare. You've got a point of reference that something's changed in them, that their mood is low, everything is negative, maybe their personal hygiene and their activities of daily living around the home, everything has deteriorated, and they're really in a real slump. And this slump isn't shifting, and nothing is letting them feel better. There's no good days. There's no sort of light at the end of any tunnel.
Yeah.
Everything is bleak. So, then you can sort of ask them, how are things going? Are they tearful? Are they really sad? Is everything really depressing? Even in their interaction with you is flat, that sort of real flat effect. There's no conversation. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Talk to them about it. You have a point of reference. Are things okay? I think I'm worried about you. I'm concerned. Have you thought about talking to somebody? Because as much as I'm here to support you, I have limitations as to what I can give, and it may not be advice, and it will be coming from a place of quite biased. So actually, you need them to go to a neutral person who can advise them or care for them in a different kind of way. Yes, absolutely, refer them.
Yeah,
refer them and suggest.
Thanks for that. I think a lot of us tend to tiptoe around it, or we rely on the cliches. It'll be okay, give it time. But I think both what you say is also for ourselves, when we start to see those signs in ourselves where everything is flat, there's no joy, there's no anticipation for anything, that even for ourselves, those are signs that we maybe need to also reach out to somebody and see somebody. And there's so many great resources now. I feel like in the last 5 years, even online counseling has become way more people understand it, they know it's there, and hopefully within all kinds of price points too, that people can really access more services. So I'm going to shift topics just a little bit, because you're also, I don't know what's the proper title, but you're also like a sex therapist. What's the official title?
I'm a psychosexual therapist. Sex therapist, yes, people say it, but psychosexual, I work with sexual dysfunctions and sexual issues within relationships, but not just sort of looking at people having intercourse. It's more than that.
Okay, it's more than that.
It's more than that.
Well, we're whole people, so that makes sense.
We're whole people.
There's a psycho aspect to it, a psychological aspect to it.
Yes, absolutely.
So are you seeing, just generally, I mean, during this season when we are stressed and there is, just constant kind of worry, I know for me that it's affecting my ability to relax. And if I'm not relaxed, I'm definitely not, going to be easily turned on. So how do we manage that, Julie? Because what a sad thing that something like sex and pleasure would be also absent during this time where we are so stressed and need that. So can you give us some advice, some tips, how to help ourselves kind of get out of our heads enough to be intimate with others?
And intimacy doesn't have to be sexual.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think people sort of feel, oh my gosh, their libido is gone. Guys are feeling, I'm unable to get or even maintain erection. Yeah, because you're stressed. You're living in the middle of a pandemic. Women maybe feel that they've just got no desire. Yeah. And that's okay. It's very normal. It's normal given the current circumstances. Plus, if you have teenagers in the house and children in the house, everyone's sleep patterns are all over the place. So, you're feeling a bit more self-conscious. Yes. So there are many things that can come and interfere with that. But it's to sort of try to find time to be intimate. And intimacy can be in all kinds of ways. You're just holding hands, maybe you're hugging each other, you're able to stroke and be tender and have those sort of moments with each other that affirm the other one and let them know that you're there. You know, I sort of suggest to couples to do like a hug to relax exercise. So you ask each other, can I have a hug? And you're asking for a hug based on your need, not because you think they need one.
Yeah.
No, I need a hug, so I'm going to ask you, can I have a hug, please? You make yourself available, you hug each other, not looking intensely in each other's faces, maybe over the shoulder, but you're being aware of each other. You're being aware of their weight, their breath, their smell, where your thoughts are going. So it's a real, you're connected with them. It's a real mindfulness hug. And then after maybe 30 seconds, 3 minutes, however long is necessary, you part, and then you just say thank you. And then you both continue doing what you were doing before the hug. But you've just taken time out of your day to have a need met for you. And then they then can ask you, and when they're ready, for the same back. But it's just bringing intimacy and connection back. So it's not about just having sex, because it's more than that at this time, especially with children as well. Being able to hug a young child or a teenager, they may not ask you, but being able to just go and hug them and let them know that you're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Touch is so important.
It's so important. It's one of the main things that we've lost during this time is we've lost touch.
We don't even get to see people's faces. We're used to seeing expression of the mouth and just it's gone. We're just seeing eyes.
So Julie, what if you don't have a partner? What if you're quarantining alone and you don't have somebody to be intimate with or to ask for your needs to be met? Anything people can do when they are alone?
Maybe they have friends. Even a hug can be with anybody. It doesn't need to be just with a sexual partner. It could be with a relative. It could be with a sibling. It could be with a parent, or even a good friend, a neighbor. Whoever that they're able to sort of reach out with and connect with. Because all we're doing is trying to create pockets of time where you have those close connections with somebody. And in this time, our go-to is to isolate and sort of stay away. And maybe, as you said, if you live by yourself and you don't have that person, then creating those opportunities where you can connect with others safely.
It's almost like at some point, again, it's that balancing. There's a pandemic, but there's also your mental wellness and health. Absolutely. And so you need to take safe risks in order to make sure you're staying mentally well. So if you've been isolated for 3 to 4 months, maybe quarantine diligently, then go travel to see a friend, get a COVID test, and make your mental health a priority, because things like intimacy and touch are actually not optional. We actually need them to be high functioning people, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yes, you are. And even if you're at home and you're on your own and you're giving yourself a manicure, a pedicure, or even like a massage, you can be creative in ways as you can, just to sort of create this sort of stroking, and our body holds on to that muscle memory. So it's just reawakening a touch that has been there before. That's what we're trying to do at this time, especially if you live alone.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure YouTube is a wealth of information on self-soothing techniques. I'm sure there are many, and you're being very, very polite to keep them out.
I'm being polite.
You're being very polite. But I mean, I imagine too that, there are multiple ways to self-soothe. And I think what I hear you saying, more than anything else, however we go about it, to make it a priority. Don't lose that part of who we are in the middle of all the stress that we're carrying and dealing with in our day-to-day.
And I suppose what I would add to that then is, because we don't want to create negative ways of coping, and self-soothing can come in all sorts of ways. Somebody could grow an addiction in the pandemic and find the only way they can self-soothe is by self-stimulation or masturbation. And then after this pandemic, they haven't put in the positive way of managing their needs.
I hear what you're saying.
So
it's like the eating too, right? It's like if I self-soothe only with food, then at some point that's not sustainable. It's not wise.
It's not sustainable.
And so we end up with something to deal with when we finally are out of this thing, which is creating another issue for us, which is scary to think about that. Even though we're in a pandemic and we need to be kind to ourselves, we also don't want to create additional addictions or challenges for ourselves, which would be a hard way to come out of this. Maybe there's some resources you can share with us as we're kind of just trying to wrap this up maybe a little bit. What are some resources if we can't afford a therapist, if we maybe just can't access them because of where we live or our networks?
Yes.
What are some resources that may help us manage our mental health during this season?
There's online, if somebody has access to online, there are many free webinars. But there are free things out there. There are online, you can find group therapies, which are usually at very low cost or sometimes even free.
Do you just Google like online group therapy? Okay, cool. Great.
Yes, because in fact, over the summer, I was even part of a 12-week program, which I just offered my time for free. People are offering different sort of therapies for free or very low cost because they know that the impact on mental health over this pandemic has been really detrimental. Yeah. So it was just a matter of just trying to really do like a fact find out there and see what's available in your area. What are people doing? Trying to see what books maybe you can get hold of, which are maybe Audible or ebooks for free, just being able to sort of give you something to read, which lets you know that whatever you're feeling is normal and other people have felt it and they've come through it. Being able to maybe not watch too much to do around the pandemic because that can create anxiety as well. So you have to limit that kind of information and keep the content to be sort of more positive and more sort of well-being and building you rather than sort of increasing fear and anxiety.
Yeah, that's great. I think you're right. We need to limit what we need to know. Maybe unfollow a few places on social media and just keep it to the ones that will, just give you what you need. Yeah, absolutely. One of my family members was telling me that they also have developed a WhatsApp group of other people in their area that they just check in with each other on their health, like, once or twice a week. It's not deep, it's not, but just kind of, are you doing okay? Are you still feeling well? Because this isolation is so real for so many people. And I thought that was a clever way to just stay connected. I'm these days feeling a bit more pressure, like I can't keep up with my book club. I can't keep up with this. I just want to just be alone. But I really appreciate the fact that people are also finding ways to just check in on people's mental wellness by just saying, are you okay? Without the shame of, feeling like I don't know, not the shame, that's not the right word, but feeling the heaviness of maybe having to find a therapist and find a resource, at least starting that as one way.
And by reaching out to somebody else, you're helping yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
By hearing their situation and their challenges, you're sort of realizing we're going through something very similar.
Yeah, I never thought about that. You're right, though. There's a commiseration that happens.
Absolutely, there is a commiseration
with the Misery Loves Company, but also provides some
support.
Release. Yeah, and some support. Really. Absolutely. I was asking my college daughter, if she felt it was easier to kind of go through this pandemic, knowing that all other college students in the entire world are similarly like frustrated, stuck with their parents, whatever. And she's like, yeah, kind of, I guess, because there is this sense of, it's not just me, like literally everyone in the world can relate to what this has felt like, So, well, as my last question, as you go into the holidays and look at trying to celebrate and observe, maybe you can share me two things with me. One, your favorite tradition, food, something that you're looking forward to doing with your family, something fun that we can all, end on a bit of a light note. And then two, maybe we'll start with this question first. How are you mitigating stress in the holidays? And then what are you going to do to celebrate and observe the holidays to keep it fun and joyful for your family?
Keep it fun and joyful by doing lots of baking. I love to bake.
Awesome. What are you going to bake? Tell us.
Mince pies. I love mince pies.
Mince pies. Can I tell you, for years, I thought that thing had meat in it.
I know.
And I was like, how does soakers beef and like raisins? I just was like, I just couldn't get it. But then I had one and they're not bad. They're not bad. You make your own mince?
I make my own, but when I travel to the UK, I come with the jars.
Okay, you come with the
keep it there and they last for ages. And if they do become a bit sort of dry, just add maybe orange juice or some brandy, depending on who's going to be eating.
Yeah, that's me. If I'm coming, please make it with brandy.
So I make lots of mince pies. I'll look for Christmas puddings. I have a big sweet tooth, so lots of cakes and baking and stuff like that.
So I'm taking from that I can also be kinder to myself about stress eating. I can just kind of be like, it's the holidays, lean into it a little bit.
It's the season.
Yeah, it's the season. A little bit. Okay, thank you, Dr. Julie. This is why I call you Dr. Julie.
And next year is another year, you know,
Yes.
those challenges with the £15, you'll tackle it another time, but not to be too harsh
Yes.
on yourself at this time. It's
Yeah,
the holiday
absolutely.
season, and it's a different holiday season, you know,
It
what we
is
know
different.
Christmas to be like. So we have to try and adapt ourselves to this environment and make it as good enough as we can. And normally I buy lots of presents and do gifts. This year will be different because
Yeah.
getting the gifts into Kenya is going to be a challenge. So,
Yeah.
you know, we've had to adapt the way that we're going to do this Christmas, but we try and make it as fun as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I think modifying everything and focusing on,
Modifying.
what we can control. It's been
Yes.
clear to me I have control issues this year. I kind of knew going into this year, but the pandemic has made it clear that that's an issue for me, and modifying this
Mhm.
year's traditions will be something that will help me as well. So
Yes.
thank you so much for being with us. It has been, as always, enlightening. I always learn from you. And as much as I learn from you as my therapist, I learn from you more as my friend, truly, as a mother, as a professional, as a dual citizen, and all the hats that you wear. You wear it with such grace. So thank you so much for
Thank
being with
you.
me today,
Thank you,
Julie.
Lily.
Merry
Thank you.
Christmas. Happy
And
holidays.
to you, happy
Thank you.
holidays.
I will see you, I hope, before then.
I hope so too.
Thank you so much. That's a fake bye. Okay. I have to give it a little bit of a, like the fake bye, because I'll put it on YouTube. So they'll be like a bye. And then I'll be able to, you can edit out the rest. Thank you for that. I know we didn't go exactly by this. I'm looking to see if we missed anything huge, but I don't think we did. You feel okay about it? How do you feel?
Yeah. I think
Good.
looking at the questions, we more or less got to everything.
I think we did almost get everything. Yeah, I almost think we did.
Yeah.
I tend to be very wordy in my, like, I wish I could be as succinct as I write them, because I tend to be like, oh, and this and this and this and this, and then I ask the question. But I can see from our time that we did really well on our time. So that makes me feel very hopeful that I don't know that we'll have much editing, actually. So
Okay, because it's just coming up to what 5:02. So
yeah.